Alright guys, it's time to talk about the second episode of Ms. Marvel, all the crazy twists and turns that we got in this episode that is slowly building up a mystery of where exactly Kamala's powers come from and possibly some of their not of this world nature. Alright guys, so the second episode of Ms. Marvel is definitely picking up the pace somewhat. Again, it is a little bit of a slower one. We're going to discuss this in the audio commentary that will be out for members. But there is our first bigger action sequence at the end of this episode. Now, to get there, there's a lot of things going on in this. Specifically that Kamala is still trying to wrap her head around everything that happened with her. But on top of this, she's also trying to figure out some of her family history and her bigger connection to everything that's going on in her life and possibly even her powers. And she starts digging a little bit into her past, specifically what exactly happened back in the day that all seems to somehow connect to her grandmother. Now, there's a lot of things going on here that they're being very, secretive about, and obviously the story is going to have to play out over the course of the next couple of episodes. But one of the main things that's happening in this episode is of course the emergence of her powers, this bracelet that she's wearing, and what exactly is going on in Kamala's personal life, which relates back to, well, trying to be a good daughter, trying to go to a mosque, trying to do things that her family wants while also trying to balance this new superhero direction she has. We see her trying to get more comfortable with her powers, trying to get more comfortable with herself. And that's something that I think is really important here, because if you take this episode and watch it right after the first one, you're going to notice that there's a lot more Kamala that's more comfortable with herself and who she is and everything related to, you know, her background and what she's doing. And in this episode specifically, we learn a little bit more about Kamala's sort of, ideas and ambitions and her friends' ambitions and kind of these things happening. Now, while this is all happening, we get a new, I hesitate to call him a love interest, but a new interest, let's put it that way, in Kamala. And the way that he presents himself, the way he goes straight after Kamala, where he could have gone after every other girl that's kind of like seething over him, I think is telling and kind of hints more towards the ultimate plot we're going to have play out, because there's definitely some hints in here that it's a setup. They know who Kamala is, and there's something more happening. And speaking of that, what I really appreciated in this, there's this moment where they definitely tackle the this is what the world expects you to be, but also the world is racist and they're gonna look down upon you. And that's kind of through and through in this episode multiple times. Once very much in your face with the DOD. And I really appreciate that they put that in here just for the sake of it needed to be in here, because again, this show is being approached by some people as I hate it just because I don't understand it. And they definitely tackle that in this. Overall, I thought this episode was great, way better than the first. There's some great action sequences, great use of Kamala's powers, great use of storytelling and how they're handling it. Overall, it's another solid entry. If they can keep up this pace, I mean, critically, this might end up being one of Marvel Studios' best TV series, right there with Loki.